Oftentimes, when we think about changes, we associate structures and traditions with the core of the organization, the ministry. And really, that's not true. When people say this mission agency, um, we need to remember that the core of the identity is what's being done in ministry context, not the ones who work in an administrative structure in some office in some part of the world. And to understand the essence of what's being provided, regardless of what the structures are, it's important to remember what are the services that are associated with the sending of somebody and the receiving of somebody. As long as we're covering those services, those essential services are being handled in some way, then we can understand how the structures can change. Now, I want to run through just some of these different services. We have sending on one end and we have receiving on the other. Let's run through some of the sending to start with. We have mobilization, recruitment, screening and selection, financial management, member care, cross-cultural training, orientation to the agency. On the other end, the receiving end, traditionally, the sending office did one side, the receiving on the other side, but receiving in a ministry context, you have cultural orientation. Who helps somebody through that, adapting to the new culture, learning a language, the managing of finances at the field end, ministry supervision, very important, and field member care. So these are the services. Now, when we go through here, we'll see, and we look at different structures, organizational structures, we'll realize these things are being handled in vastly different ways. Mobilization and recruitment is not always happening from a central office anymore. At Kairos, perspectives programs focusing on recruiting churches, becoming an organization that is attractive for people because it's highly interconnected. It will facilitate involvement in ministry cross-culturally or in a context, maybe an unreached area of the world, or with certain ministry types, but not just becoming part of a club, but becoming highly connected, facilitating that. That's attractive. And so that is working on the whole recruitment as well. The screening and selections, different ways being done of this through two different models. One is the recommendation. If you recommend a mechanic to me, you're not going to recommend just anyone. You're going to want someone that you know and trust because of the relationship we have. And that's being used now in screening and selection. Also utilizing people that have had extensive ministry, cross-cultural ministry, to meet with a young couple or an individual ahead of time. Doesn't matter who the screeners are, they just have to have this experience. And organizations are starting to outsource the screening and selection to these different ways. Financial management, it doesn't have to be done in-house. There are organizations, entities that do this for a fraction of the cost of what it costs a sending office to do it. And local churches are starting to manage finances of people that are going to work cross-culturally. Member care. We have missionaries raising a member care team as they raise support. A medical doctor, a dentist, and a school teacher to help them with understanding, homeschooling when they're on the field. Pastors, prayer group leaders, people that will stand with the missionary, and then having intentional relationships with those entities that provide professional member care. So it's not all in-house anymore. There's cross-cultural training. You can get incredible training cross-culturally in London, in Cape Town, in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in Chicago, in Detroit. These multicultural contexts, there is cross-cultural training being provided, much better than an agency or an organization can offer from coming to a training for a month. Orientation to the agency. Agencies are starting to do that virtually through just progress. This is how it works, and review this, et cetera. And it's all done online. On the receiving end, the big change we're seeing here are believers from host countries becoming integrally involved in the receiving of cross-cultural missionaries. Not always with traditional agencies, but the non-traditional, informal world. So the cultural orientation, language learning, to have a husband and wife from a culture that goes to the airport to receive a young couple or an individual who's coming to the country, to be met by somebody from that culture who brings you in and helps you through the process of learning language, finding a home to live with so that you're immersed in the language and the culture. That's tremendously attractive. Field-based financial management. This is being done in different ways, but oftentimes connecting a donor from back home directly with the ministry. It could be a seminary, it could be a medical service, it could be, any kind of an entity that is formally established. It doesn't have to be part of an agency. It's just run there in the country, and finances can be channeled there and get it there within half an hour. And it doesn't require a middleman to do the receipting and the finances and all that. And reporting can be done with pictures and a Zoom call and answering of questions very easily. Ministry supervision, more and more we're seeing host believers or near country believers helping in the supervision of missionaries, cross-cultural workers, and not just a foreigner who's there in a leadership role. And field member care is becoming highly interconnected between service providers, people that can do this with different organizations. It doesn't have to all be within the same organization. So, but these are the basic services that are needed, whether it's a church that's sending a missionary to be a part of a church in Cairo, Egypt, or it could be a ministry that's connecting globally and they're going to send a worker that's going to work in Beirut, Lebanon, with refugees there under a seminary or a local church there. These are the basic concepts that you need to be keep in mind as you're thinking about making these changes.